This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome, you are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. This is the NFL Draft Prospects 101, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2015 NFL Draft. We're talking big defensive linemen. And last up in this group of the elites that probably could come off the board in the first round is none other than Florida State's Eddie Goldman. Let's jump into his pros and talk about why this guy can sneak in the first round. At some point, we'll see. Ideal size, 6'4", 320 pounds. This guy fits the prototypical 3-4 nose tackle. But in the same breath, wouldn't surprise me if a team like Dallas decided to take this guy and slide him in as a 3 technique in a 4-3 defensive front. It all makes sense to me. This guy is versatile enough to do that. Will collapse the pocket. And look, Eddie Goldman can get from point A to point B quickly. Normally it happens through a defender or offensive lineman for that matter, not necessarily going around him. We'll talk about him going around guys, but he can collapse the pocket. You see this when he's fresh. And he's one of these guys, when this guy is fresh, and he's feeling good, he can be dominant. He can change the game. He can do some things, okay? When he is fresh, and we'll talk about what happens when he is not. But when he's fresh, he can collapse that pocket. He also stacks and sheds very well. Here's a guy that on numerous occasions, I'm watching him be blocked on a play, and as the ball carrier comes his way, boop, there goes the offensive lineman, and down goes the running back. And so that's something that I also love to see. I want to see guys, again, just knowing what's going on around them, being able to engage an offensive lineman but still know where the ball carrier is in proximity to where you are, and be able to get rid of an offensive lineman and get to the ball carrier. It's a beautiful thing. It's like poetry in motion when done correctly. Eddie Goldman does it correctly a lot of the time. Heavy hands. He's got violent hands sometimes. Don't see it enough for my liking, but when I do see it, I'm like, man, that's some good stuff right there. He's got the type of hands, get off of me, and slaps away the offensive lineman's hands, knocks him off balance. He's in the backfield. He's got the type of hands that jolts an offensive lineman. You see them shocked, their body shocked, head rocks back, and you're like, man, he's really got control of them at that point. You just don't see it enough. And for a guy like Eddie Goldman, who I know can do some things, I want to see him be more violent. I want to see him take an offensive lineman like a rag doll, toss him around, and get to the ball carrier again. To me, it all stems from him being fresh. When he is at maximum stamina, guy is a handful, a load to deal with. He is tired. You don't get much of anything. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Start at the point of attack. I think that goes without saying for most of these big guys. If you're being considered as one of the better defensive linemen in the draft, which if you're being considered as a first round pick, you're considered as one of the better defensive linemen in the draft, you gotta be stopped at the point of attack. That's just a prerequisite to me. It really goes without saying, but you gotta mention it anyway. If you're not stopped at the point of attack, which means you're not holding up in your gap, you're not standing up your offensive lineman that's trying to block you, then you can't be dominant in the run game. You can't be a fixture along the defensive line, especially in the run game. You can't be a first round pick. So to me, being stopped at the point of attack, prerequisite for being a first round pick. Eddie Goldman fits the bill. Stop at the point of attack. Can get pressure on the quarterback. This is where I think he sort of separates himself on a lot of these guys in that second tier. Look, I talked about Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton had 9.5 sacks last year. Is he a pass rusher? No, but 9.5 sacks is 9.5 sacks. He found a way to the quarterback. Will he do that at the next level? I highly doubt it, but again, he's put up numbers. I told you, numbers don't lie. 9.5 sacks. It's 9.5 sacks. That's a career for most of these big guys, okay? That was one season for Danny Shelton. Leonard Williams, one of the reasons why he's talked about as the best defensive player in this draft, why he's going to be one of the highest players coming off the board in this draft, not just from defensive standpoint, but just as a player in general, is because he can get to the quarterback, among other things. Same thing with Malcolm Brown. He can get to the quarterback. I think that kind of separates him from a guy like Jordan Phillips or a guy like, Eric Armstead. He can get to the quarterback. Well, Eddie Goldman is a guy that can get to the quarterback. Is he going to get to the quarterback very often? No, but unlike Jordan Phillips, unlike Eric Armstead, he can get to the quarterback. I've seen him get to the quarterback. I've seen him win. He would have more sacks if he could do something else, and I'll talk about that when we get to the cons, but he would have probably had 6 or 7 sacks if he could just do one thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but he can get to the quarterback. Seen him do it, saw him get guys on the ground, saw him make plays, and so this last thing helped him as a pro get to these 4 sacks that he had. And the thing that I liked about him as a football player, the more playing time he saw from his freshman to his sophomore to his junior season, the more playing time Eddie Goldman got, the more production you saw from him. The tackles for loss increased every year in his collegiate career. So did the sack totals from 0 to 2 to 4, with more snaps, more exposure, more production for Eddie Goldman. I like that out of players. I like it a lot. And so lightning quick swim / over move is the key for him getting sacks. That's the move that he exploits and uses the best to get into the backfield and get to the quarterback. When he knows it's a passing down, he anticipates the snap count, and he wins. Man, I tell you what, of all these defensive linemen, the ones we've talked about, the Leonard Williams, Danny Shelton, Malcolm Brown, Eric Armstead, Jordan Phillips, none of them have, I'll take that back. I take that back. Leonard Williams has a plethora of moves, some that rival. He's got some quick moves. I'll take that back. Let's take him out of the equation though. We're talking about these guys that are 315, 20, 25, 30 pounds. Of those guys, Eddie Goldman is in that category. These true, defensive tackle, nose tackle types, none of them have that kind of lightning quick move off the football. Man, is that thing beautiful to watch when he unloads it. Again, don't see it enough. Doesn't happen enough for my liking, but again, when you're 320 pounds, you take what you can get, but that move there, if he can perfect it, know when to use it, know how to set it up, time up some snap counts, be on the field for some passing downs, that move can make this guy some money down the line. And so we go from there to some cons, okay? No pod. And these second tier guys, Armstead, Jordan Phillips, Eddie Goldman, no pod, man. No pod of doom. And those first 3 guys, they had it. Malcolm Brown, Danny Shelton, Leonard Williams, they all had a pod. They could stick that pod out there and make it happen. He doesn't do that, and it frustrates me. I need it. I need a pod in my life. I need a guy that's being blocked. Okay, offensive lineman's got his hands up here, locked him in, he's not going anywhere, and still, presence of mind, stick the arm out there and disrupt a play. I need that in my life. The difference between a 7-yard run on first down, up the B gap, up the A gap, and a 2-yard run, up the A gap, up the B gap, is simply having a pod, okay? You're getting blocked, and you extend the arm out, next thing you know, you slow him up, or either you grab him and he stops, his momentum. Now you got the cavalry arriving, linebacker comes, other defensive linemen come, next thing you know, he's not going anywhere. Okay? Same thing happens. You stick it out there. His momentum carries him forward another yard or two. But guess what? You've slowed him down to the point now. Here comes everyone else. He's going down for a 4-yard gain instead of 7 or 8, where you just let him run straight by, full steam ahead, gets to the safety, 9-yard gain on first down. That's the difference between having a pod and not having a pod. And Eddie Goldman doesn't have a pod. Ineffective when tired. And I've talked about this numerous times early on in his breakdown, that when this guy is tired, forget about it. You're not getting anything out of him. I can't tell you how many times he was on the field, dead ass tired, and they would snap the ball and he would just stand up and say, all right, y'all go ahead on this one. I'm gonna make sure that he don't try to scramble out the pocket. If he does, I'm not gonna catch him. But I'm gonna stand right here and make sure he don't run right into me, okay? And so he'll just be on the field and he'll just be kind of shadowing the quarterback like 15 yards away from him. Like, quarterback goes that way, he'll just kind of give me a muddle shuffle this way. Quarterback goes that way, kind of give me a muddle shuffle this way. But he's not actually doing anything active. I mean, the center is that, you know that drill? You know that drill at the combine with the offensive linemen when they're shadowing each other, you can't touch them? You know, the one guy's got his hand behind his back like this, and the other one is just kind of shadowing him and trying to keep up with him. And, you know, one guy's running and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and the other offensive lineman is trying to block him. They just want to see your footwork. They want to see you change directions and stay in front of a guy. And so that's what it looks like when Eddie Goldman gets tired. He's just literally running back and forth, shuffling, jogging, not really rushing up the field, doing anything purposefully. He's just on the field, just taking up space. It's really Medusa. Hard to watch. When he's tired, get his ass off the field. I already told you, when the guy has a full bar of stamina, hard to deal with, man. Dude is a load when he is fully engaged and full of energy. When the guy is zapped and there's nothing left in the tank, I mean there's nothing left in the tank. Will miss tackles. And remember I talked about him potentially having 7 sacks? You know, if he could just do one thing, that one thing is actually tackle. He frustrates me because there are countless plays that I can recollect in my mind where he's got a guy in the backfield for a 2-yard loss, misses the tackle. He's got a quarterback sack for an 8-yard loss, misses the sack. And sure, some of these guys are elusive guys that can break tackles, get away, make you look silly, but when you're 300 pounds and you get a quarterback and you got him in your grasp, you got to bring him down. And he missed at least 2 sacks and at least 2 tackles for loss during the different tapes that I watched on him. And I'm just like, come on, guy. What are your hands? What do you got? Oil on your hands? What do you got? Baby oil on your hands? Bring the guy down on the ground, man. Stop letting these guys slip through your fingers. And then he always gets up like, oh, I messed up, I had him. Tackle him, man. What are you doing? Tackle if you. Tackle these dudes, get him on the ground, man. And so, if I could just get him to be a more consistent tackler, okay? I think Eddie Goldman is exactly what you're looking for in the middle of your defense. I mean, when fresh, and I've talked about this already, when fresh, this guy is among the best defensive linemen in this draft. And again, would not surprise me if he snuck in the back door this first round. New England, Dallas, one of these teams looking to bolster their front. Even an Indianapolis Colts team that could use a little bit of help along that front line would not surprise me in the least if Eddie Goldman is on their radar at the back end of the first round. And that's going to do it for Eddie Goldman and his breakdown, his NFL Draft Prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. We're about to switch gears. Come on back and join me and see which gear we're switching to. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.
Mm-hmm.